Oh, phew, I dropped something. That's indicative of how this lesson's going to go. It's going to go that well. Because I need you guys to open up to 8-2, completing the square. All right, I'm going to try and do this lesson slow. I'm going to try and explain it the best I can. All right, but completing a square is no joke. It's a little difficult to understand. A couple things you guys need to remember are whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay, and square roots always have two answers, a positive and a negative. Doesn't mean our final answer is a positive and negative. It just means that when I take the square root, I'm going to have a positive number and a negative number. So let's go to 8-2. Completing the square. So what does this mean? It means I'm going to make the left side of the equation a perfect square binomial. Okay? So what I mean by that, it's going to look like x plus 5 squared, or x minus 3 squared. That's what my goal is to get that. And it's not that difficult to get it there. All right, it's pretty simple. All right, but there is one trick, and I'm going to show you guys in A. So A says x squared minus 20x equals 0. So the trick to getting it into, or to completing the square is actually the middle term. All right, everything about quadratics seems to revolve around the middle term. So here, all right, our middle term is negative 20. So what we're going to do is, this is my little work over here. This is how I did it in the notes. So I'm going to do negative 20 divided by 2. It's negative 10. Okay? And now I'm going to take that and I'm going to square it. And that's 100. And that's really all the work I got to do to kind of help me in completing the square. So here we go. We're going to do x squared minus 20x plus 100. So I'm adding 100 to the left side. So now I have to add it to the right side. Notice that. So the left side is now a completed square. So this is where these numbers come from. So I use this one. Now I'm going to use this number. So that number comes into play right here. So x minus 10 squared equals 100. All right? So one more time, I took the middle term, I divided by 2 to get negative 10. Then I did negative 10 squared, and I got 100. So I take this number and I add it to both sides. And then, to get this, all right, this factors to x minus 10 squared. Notice negative 10, negative 10. It's no coincidence that those are the same, okay? So I have x minus 10 squared equals 100. Now I can go ahead, I can take the square root of both sides. So square root of x minus 10 squared is just x minus 10. Okay? So I have x minus 10 equals plus or minus 10. Okay? Now, here I have two answers. I have x minus 10 equals 10, and x minus 10 equals negative 10. Okay, and I'm running out of room, so I'm just going to finish this problem up right over here. All right, so to solve this side right here, how do I get rid of a minus 10? Well, I add it, so one answer is 20, because 10 plus 10 is 20. Now, how do I get rid of a minus 10 here? Well, I add 10. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. And I can check my answer if I plug it in. 0 squared is 0. Minus 20 times 0, that's 0. That equals 0. So I got that. 20. 20 squared is 400. Minus 20 times 20, well, that's also 400. 400 minus 400 is 0. So there we go. Now, this one was a basic completing the square problem. Very simple, okay? But just because it's simple doesn't mean that a harder problem is any harder, okay? So now let's look at a little bit more difficult problem in B. Now, B is a little bit more difficult because that 7's there, okay? So I don't care that the 7's there. It actually plays no part in my problem right now. So I still start out by doing negative e divided by 2. It's negative 4. Negative 4 squared, well, that's 16. So I'm going to do t squared minus 8t plus 16. Notice how I put the 16 right next to that. Okay? Now the 7, I just keep that right there, equals 16. So here's what I did. I took this number just like I did in the first problem, and I added it, but I put it right next to this piece, and you'll see why in a second. The 7 did nothing with, okay, not even addressing it right now, equals 16. Now, I want to get this piece by itself. So I subtract 7. Following me? Now, this is a perfect square trinomial. That number comes into play right here. T minus 4 squared. Once I get that alone, I can use that number. T minus 4 squared equals 9. Now I can take the square root of both sides. Okay? So let me get rid of this. So let me rewrite it. I had t minus 4 equals, I had the square root of 9. Well, that's 3, so it's plus or minus 3. Okay? So this is the step after what I just had. So now I have t minus 4 equals 3, and t minus 4 equals negative 3. So I add 4 to both sides. So I get t equals 7. And right here I have t equals 1. Now I can check my work by plugging it back in. I could do 1 squared is 1 minus 8 times 1. Well, that's negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Okay, I can plug in 7. I have 7 squared, that's 49, minus 8 times 7, that's 56. So I'm at negative 7. So negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Now the next question is 17. It's actually the same thing as A, so I said skip it. Sorry about that. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to, I believe the question says 28. 28 is actually just like B in how I'm going to do it. Okay. It's a squared plus 12a plus 32 equals 0. So I'm going to take the 12 divided by 2, that's 6. And the square, it's 36. So I have a squared plus 12a plus 36 plus the 32 equals 36. Trying to get that by itself. So I'm going to move the 32. A squared plus 12a plus 36 equals 4. All good? Now, this number comes into play. So this factors to a plus 6 squared equals 4. Now I can take the square root. Take the square root of that. That was a plus 6 equals plus or minus 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. So I have plus or minus 2. So I have a plus 6 equals 2, and a plus 6 equals negative 2. Subtract 6. So a equals negative 4. Subtract 6. A equals negative 8. So there we go. That's how you do that, completing the square. All right, I have two more for you. And then we'll kind of move on. I just want to show you how to do some of the other problems here. All right, so now it says in example 2. Oh, nope, sorry, forgot. We got 33 there, didn't see it. 33. That says x squared minus 4x minus 3 equals 0. So I'm going to take negative 4 divided by 2. That's negative 2. I'm going to square that to get 4. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x plus 4 minus 3 equals 4. So I'm trying to get this by itself, so I add the 3. So I have x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 7. Now I'm going to use that number that I calculated first off. So I have x minus 2 squared equals 7. Now I take the square root. Now the only trick with this is 7 isn't a perfect square. I can't take the square root of that. So I have x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. So I have x minus 2 equals the square root of 7, and x minus 2 equals negative square root of 7. So I add 2 to both sides, and you might think this is more difficult or complex. I actually think it's easier. So you have x equals 2 plus root 7, because they can't combine them, because one is rational and one's irrational. And this is 2 minus the square root of 7. Okay? Now I got two more problems, A and B in example 2, that I need to go over for you guys. Okay? Now these are a little tricky. All right? Now what do I do when that leading coefficient is not 1? Well, what do I mean by leading coefficient? See how in this problem I have 3x squared minus 24x minus 5 equals 0. Do you see how the leading term is 3? I don't like that. So here's what I do. Divide everything by 3. Now fractions are numbers too, so I can't just be afraid of this because there's fractions. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And that's just negative 5/3 equals 0. Now that my leading coefficient is 1, I'm going to do negative 8 divided by 2. That's negative 4, and I'm going to square it. So here's what I do. I have x squared minus 8x plus 16 minus 5/3 equals 16. Not bad so far. All right, now I'm running out of room. So what we're going to want to do, so I don't want you guys to miss this, I'm going to rewrite it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to move 5/3 to the side, so I can add 5/3. Now, you might be annoyed because it's a fraction, but if you do 16 plus 5/3 on your calculator, okay, so you're going to do 16 plus 5 divided by 3, enter, then you're going to go math, enter, enter, and that should give you let's see, 53 over 3. Okay? Now from here, I have x minus 4 squared, that was that number right there, okay, equals 53 over 3. Now I take the square root. So, I have x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 53 over 3. Now that can't be broken down. How do I know? Well, I'm Harmon. I just know these things. So I add 4 to both sides. Now this is why I like that plus or minus sign. Because my answer is x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 53 over 3. Okay? So, one last problem, and then I'll let you guys get your work done for it. So, we have 5x squared minus 15x plus 7 equals 0. Okay? So I don't like the 5 out there, so I divide by 5. And I have x squared minus 3x plus 7/5 equals 0. So now I'm going to do negative 3 divided by 2.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just did. Okay.
That's negative 3 divided by 2. All right? Can't do anything with it. Now I'm going to square that. Negative 3 squared is 9. 4 squared, or 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to do x squared minus 3x plus 9/4 plus 7/5 equals 9/4. Notice I'm adding 9/4 to both sides here. It's annoying. It's fractions. I get it. So I have x squared minus 3x plus 9/4. Okay? And I'm running out of room here, but you know I'm going to subtract 7/5 from both sides. So what I need to do is I have 9/4 minus 7/5. I'm going to do 9 divided by 4. Hit enter on your calculator. Then I'm going to do minus 7 divided by 5. Hit enter. You're going to get some decimal. Go to math, enter, enter. Okay, because we want to deal with the fraction here. I don't like dealing with decimals. So this is 45 over 20 minus 28 over 20. Well, 45 minus 28, I believe that's 17. So I have 17 over 20. All right, so I have x minus, now I'm going to use this number from back here, x minus 3/2 squared, that's this side, okay, equals 17 over 20. Take the square root. So I have x minus 3 over 2, I need that parenthesis, equals the square root of 17 over 20. Now, I'm not worried about rationalizing the denominator. Whoever signed might, okay? But now I have minus 3/2, so I'm going to add it. So I have x equals 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 20. Now, square root of 20 could be broken up into 2 root 5, okay? And then I would have to rationalize that. But I think we're good to go on this. So reach out to me if you have any questions. This stuff's getting harder. I'm trying to break it down as best I can, but we still have to get through chapter 8, and I got to see what chapter 9 is. So those of you who are not reaching out and watching the videos, I mean, it's going to get really difficult. Those of you who are not attending the Google Hangouts, this is going to be very difficult for you guys. Again, don't be using PhotoMath, things like that. All right. I know it's very tempting to do it, but don't do it. I'll know. Don't make me make this any more difficult than it needs to be. So reach out when you have questions, all right? Good luck.